one along the Gulf. Starting in Boston, Massachusetts, it comes down to the Florida Keys. And from Appalachia, Florida, it travels up to Brownsville, Texas. The Intracoastal Waterway serves as a shipping route for commercial vessels and recreational boaters alike. Maintaining the ICW is no easy task, and it's the duty of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to ensure these channels have a minimum depth of 12 feet. Now, this is accomplished by a process called dredging. What a dredge is a huge hydraulic vacuum cleaner. It sits up on a barge and then pulls the sand and muck up from underneath the water. Red and green markers line the channels for navigation purposes.
As you guys heard, the ICW is pretty impressive, and it means we get a lot of visitors here in town. One of those visitors is somebody famous you may recognize from movies like Top Gun or Mission Impossible, Tom Cruise. If you look off the left-hand side of the boat, you're going to see a couple of buildings behind a bridge. I want you to find the short gray and white building with the long blue rectangle window in the top of it. The top 4 floors of that building are owned by Tom Cruise. One of the floors is entirely dedicated to being a flight simulator, and he has an elevator in that building big enough to drive his Ferrari straight in and up into his living room. Tom Cruise is in town part-time because he is a member of the Church of Scientology, which is that beige building with the orange roof. There are lots of locations of the Church of Scientology in the world, but only 2 headquarters, one in Los Angeles and one here. Before that building was known as the Fort Harrison Hotel, where Marilyn Monroe and Joe DiMaggio got married.
It should be here.
In front of all those buildings is a bridge called the Clearwater Memorial Causeway, and that bridge was built in dedication to the men and women of the armed forces. They started building that bridge at 2 opposite ends and worked their way into the middle, and when they got there, they realized that the 2 halves did not line up properly. So they had to tear the whole thing down and build it all over again, and that mistake costed them an extra $90 million. If you guys look out to the right here, you're going to see this gray house on the beach. That is what we call Granny's house. In the 50s, this entire neighborhood was suburban and full of houses just like that one. But in the 70s, a businessman came to town and decided to tear down the neighborhood in favor of these condos so he could get rich. The only person who would not sell their house was a woman we call Granny. She lived there with her husband, and it's where they had raised their children, and so she wasn't willing to leave for any amount of money. Obviously, the businessman did not like that, so he tried a lot of things to get her out of that house. The first thing he tried was getting her water shut off, and she still wouldn't leave. So then he got her electricity shut off, and she still wouldn't leave. Eventually, he got so fed up that he took his bulldozer and drove it straight into her front porch while she was inside the house. And she still would not leave. She ended up living there very happily for the rest of her life, and when she eventually did pass away, the house went to her children. The businessman offered her children 10 times the market value of the house if they would sell it to him. So they said yes and took his check and ran off to the bank. However, when they tried to cash the check, it bounced. Turns out that before she died, Granny had put a deed on her house for the next 100 years. So it is now protected historical property. They cannot take it down and they cannot sell it. If any person, company, or even natural disaster destroyed that house, they would have to rebuild it exactly how it is now. The family now uses it as an Airbnb with its own private beach. It costs about $1,000 per night and is booked out 2 years in advance.
They're ahead of us right now on that force band going under underneath. There's good.
see in numbers. Around here, we'll usually see anywhere from 2 to 9 dolphins in a pod, but of course there can always be more. And if you ever see one by itself, that is most likely a full-grown male because they tend to be lone wolves.
उधर पे डॉल्फिन दिख रहा है. फिर से मिल कैसा
Baby with this. Farthest one out is the mom's got a baby.
अरमानी फिर से म्यूजिक बंद कर प्लीज अरमानी म्यूजिक बंद कर.
Yeah, like the captain said, there is a baby with this group, and if you can't tell which one the baby is, it's the small one. I just want you guys to know that I tell the same jokes every time, even if nobody
আমি জানি না তোমরা শুনতে পাচ্ছ কি না, আমি জাস্ট তোমাদের সাথে শেয়ার করতে চেয়েছিলাম ডলফিন ন্যাচারাল ওয়েদারেতে, ন্যাচারাল ওয়াটারেতে কী করে থাকে। তো থ্যাংক ইউ সো মাচ তোমরা যারা এসেছো। তো চলো বাই, চলো বাই।